Hey everybody, welcome to Caketastic Cakes. It's Jen. I'm back. I'm going to show you today how to make this football out of gum paste. So if you like this video, please like, please subscribe. Here we go. All right, get your gum paste and color it with your copper color. I didn't use brown or anything, just copper. And take a big ball of it, start rolling it in your hands, and roll off the two edges on each end and kind of push them together. Say I'm kind of pushing at each opposite angle toward the center so the ends stay pinched and the center gets fatter. And you're basically trying to make a lemon out of this. So if you can make like a lemon shape, something like that, that is exactly what you're trying to go for. And because my gum paste was really soft, it was a little saggy, so I'm going to have to keep reshaping this as we go. But don't be surprised. All right. So once you get your tips, make sure they're pretty pointed, as nice and smoothed off as you can be. You don't want it too pointy. Now I'm using my knife and I'm going to make 4 seams across the football. I'm going to go across the top and around each end. You try to make them as straight around the end as possible. I am making my seam not straight on top of the football because of the way it kind of settled a little bit. I want the laces and everything to angle towards the outside of the cake and not be facing straight up. So that's why I'm doing my seams at this angle that you can see here. And once you get your one seam going across the top, do another one that goes around the sides and try to keep your angles at 90 degrees angles from each other. Okay. And now our football is already well begun. Now I'm going to add the 2 white stripes that are at either end of the football. So you're going to take your white gum paste, roll it out nice and thin, and cut out a pretty thin rectangle. When you are making this, you want to make sure that the white stripe is not too thick and not too thin. Proportionally, it's got to take up just the right amount of space. It does lift up and over, and it looks like it would go all the way around the football, but it only covers half of the football. So when you match it up to the 2 side seams, take your knife blade and cut it off level with the seam or even with the seam, just like you saw me do. And that's it. Just make sure that you have a nice even curve going. So if you need to touch it up a little, go right ahead. If that means it moves on the seam, that's fine. It just means now you got to trim a little more off or, put it back into balance again. Okay, so when you get the one end, take your time with it. Make sure, like I said, it's nice and clean. Make sure it's not too thick, because when it sticks out, you're going to see it and it won't look quite right. So you get that one in place and match up the seam that you already have on there and go over the white with it. And now you're going to do the same thing for the other side. Roll it out real thin. Cut out your thin stripe. I match it up there to make sure it wasn't thicker or too thin as compared to the first one. A little bit of water on your football to hold it all in place, and then match it all up. Press it into place very carefully, and just as before, take your time with the placement of it, move it around, make sure your curve is nice and clean where it hits the seams on the 2 sides. Use your knife blade and very gently cut through it to match it up. The circles don't go all the way around. They only go on the top half, the same side of the football that has all the stitches. And just like on the other side also, you're going to use your knife blade and press the seam to follow it through. Okay? And technically the white is painted on the football, so it shouldn't stick out at all. That's why I was saying to make sure that the white that you do put on there is really nice and thin so it sticks out as little as possible. Okay, now we're going to move on to the laces. The laces, you're going to start with a white rectangle. This one's much thinner than the other one. And it goes right along the seam right in the middle. You're not going to use your knife blade on top of it or anything else. You just plop it right down on top. Watch the distance between the end of that white centerpiece and the 2 end white bars. They should be pretty close to each other, so there's not a lot of room. If you look at the picture again, you're going to see there's not a lot of room. And I'm using my pokey tool to add some little divots. This is going to be where the laces are going to go. I looked it up and I counted. I want to say there are 8 laces that go across, but because of the size of the football, mine only has 6. which is fine. It's not a big deal. If you have room for one more, go ahead and do it right. But when you get your little holes in place, add a little touch of water like I just did, like you saw there, and then you're going to cut skinny little strips, skinny little pieces, and place it over the top. Make sure they're long enough that they reach, close enough on each side. And then using your pokey tool, poke the ends down into the holes. It actually will go into the holes. So make sure you get them actually down and in because it really gives it a much nicer look. So once you get all your stitches in place, I went ahead and cut around because you don't need to see me do it a whole bunch of times. Three is enough. All right, so once you get them into place, it really starts to look good, and you're like, whoa, that's a good looking football. And I'm like, I know, right? But wait, there's more. So now you're going to take your knife and just carve very lightly, but enough to make a mark that'll stay. Kind of a semicircle, a wavy circle around each side of the seams. I don't know what it is. I guess it's the patch that they sew on the laces, I guess. I don't know. But it comes out the top of the white patch in the center, right where the seam connects to it, and then it curves around each side. But that's the idea, that you bring it out and you bring it around, and check this out. I'm like, whoa, my hand just slipped. Okay, when things like this happen, you don't have to freak out. Like, I don't know how well you can see, but there's a mark there that shouldn't be there. So what you're going to do is take your knife and go back over it a little harder and just pull it back where it should go. Okay, you can fix these things, so it's not a big deal. That little pointy tool I poked right there is going to be the little valve where in theory, you would blow up the football or, deflate the football if you're a certain type of a football player. You know who I'm talking about. Okay, so you put a little dot of black into it, then use the tip again to poke a little hole. That's like the actual pinhole for the air pump to go in. And now you start putting all the little dimples on the football. Basically, you're going to take your tool and just rough it up, rough up the surface. Don't go as hard or as deep as the seams or the lines around the laces that you did before, but you got to make sure that you mark it all up. Make sure you get all your little spots in there, and do the white part too, and you're done. And it looks awesome. So please check out my other videos. Thank you very much, and I will catch you all next time. Bye-bye.